What's up, guys? Some people seem to think that part-time jobs or starter jobs, the type of job where you're pretty much completely replaceable and, the company probably doesn't care too much about you and you're probably making, minimum wage or close to it. People seem to treat these jobs with no sense of responsibility, no sense of respect, and not just respect to the company, I mean respect to the other people you work with. A lot of people seem to forget about how much they might be affecting their fellow coworkers when they call out. Obviously it completely depends on what kind of job, but I've definitely seen that happen a lot. You don't want to be the person who's known for calling out. You don't want to be the person where when people see that you work the same shift as them, they immediately assume you're not going to be there. They don't have any respect for you. They don't have no trust in you. And last of all, it's just a messed up thing to do. Like I said, depending on the job, but in a lot of cases, maybe there's 5 people supposed to do that shift. When one person calls out, that increases everyone else's workload by a lot. Or maybe one person gets stuck doing twice as much work, or everyone splits it up. But either way, in small settings like that, one call out is honestly a pretty big deal. And obviously, if you need to call out for legitimate reasons, go ahead. Obviously, that should be pretty simple. But it gets to the point where if you take advantage of kind of the system of just being able to call out whenever you want, eventually your call outs don't mean anything. No one believes you, and no one respects you. So what I was kind of wanting to talk about today is just take any job you do seriously. I don't mean that you need to be all grumpy and stuff at work, that you need to be Mr. Super Serious. I mean, take your responsibilities serious. Even if you're working a part-time job, pays minimum wage, doesn't really matter, go ahead, have fun. I encourage that. Definitely enjoy yourself. Enjoy what you're doing as much as you can. You might hate your job, but try to enjoy hating it as much as possible, But take it seriously. Have some pride in what you do, and I think that's what it really comes down to. Have some respect for yourself. Have some pride in yourself. And make the most out of these kind of crappy situations, Obviously, you're working there. Maybe you really need the money. Maybe it kind of got forced in you in some weird situation. Maybe you don't want to be there at all. But I just challenge any of you who kind of have that bad mentality about it. I challenge you to really just try and see how you can, kind of take a hold of yourself and just have some pride about what you're doing. So to kind of wrap up what I was saying, I guess, have pride in what you do, no matter what it is. Try to find the enjoyment in it if you can. Try to make things fun while still doing what you need to do. And just because you might hate your job doesn't mean you should force other people to hate it too. Maybe someone else enjoys doing what you're doing, but it's really hard to enjoy it when they have to do twice as much work because you're the one who keeps calling out or not showing up late, doing just a poor job. And that might be even worse, actually, is when you have someone you work with who just does a terrible job, not because they can't do better. It's never, at least at my level, I'm working crappy jobs. I'm working jobs that people don't like. That's why I'm talking about this. But at my level, at this level, people aren't doing bad because they can't do better. They're actively choosing to do bad. They're choosing not to push themselves. They're choosing not to do good. And if they just call out, at least, maybe we can cover the shift with someone else. Maybe someone else will step up and do twice the work. But when you're there and expected to do a certain amount of work and you can't produce, then what does that do to everyone else? It leaves us with an even worse scenario where we still have to make up that work, except for the body's still there. They didn't call out, they didn't go home, they're still there working. Anyway, guys, I'm sure some of y'all can relate to this. Anyone who works any job probably doesn't even require to be a lower job like I'm talking about. Any job, people with this mentality, it can honestly just make work a drag. There's definitely people who have the ability to make an entire shift definitely less fun, definitely less hype to be there. Shiny side out.